Happening now on Grid Tonight. NASCAR announced the start times and broadcast networks for the 2025 season. And what's new compared to the season we just finished up? Formula One's race director is out with 3 races to go in the 2024 season. Why is this happening now instead of season's end? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Cubby Lambeth. With me are Joshua Birch and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance. And this we encourage everyone to comment and chat, ask questions, and support us through Super Chat. Now, Josh, take it away with our top story this evening.
Thank you, Kobe. Good evening to you. Good evening, Matt. And good evening, everybody. So, one season down, another to begin. And earlier today, NASCAR has announced the start times and broadcast networks for the 2025 season. The first 3 points-paying races and the clash at Bowman Gray Stadium will be shown on Fox, while the remaining racings on the Fox slate, minus Talladega, will be shown on FS1. Then you have your summer slate of races on Prime Video and TNT. Now, when NBC takes over at Iowa to finish off the 2025 season, the last 3 races of the regular season will be shown on USA Network. The regular season finale at Daytona, Talladega, and Martinsville, and the season finale at Phoenix will be the only races shown on NBC, and the rest will be on USA. Now, looking at some of the notable time changes, Nashville will return as a Sunday night race at 7 p.m. Eastern on Prime Video. The first Cup Series race in Mexico City will take place at 3 p.m. Eastern time as well. That's also going to be on Prime Video. The Chicago Street Race will move up to 2 p.m. Eastern time on TNT. Thank God for that, because everybody in the last couple of years has been complaining about it getting dark, and it typically rains. While Iowa will move to an afternoon start time at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Lastly, the Las Vegas playoff race will start later in the day at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time on USA Network. Both graphics in this section are courtesy of NASCAR. Matt, what's your take on the 2025 start times? And are you concerned about the very few races, both on Big Fox and Big NBC?
Good evening, Josh. Good evening, Kobe. Hello, everybody. That is a bit of a glaring thing from this announcement, I think, that we haven't got the races on Big Fox and Big NBC throughout their obviously slightly shortened down run. So we've got less races on these networks, and what they have got, they've now pushed to their other channels. If Kobe can put the graphic back up on screen so everyone can see it for a bit more time. Thank you. So yeah, the first couple on Big Fox all the way through the first 4 weeks of the season, if you include the clash, and then everything else is on FS1 all the way through, apart from Talladega there, is pushed to FS1. So that's away from big network TV. And then if you switch to the late portion of the season from Iowa onwards, the NBC portion, they've only got those last few races really on big NBC, apart from Daytona at the end of August. So that's a real shame. But of course, we know that NBC has Sunday Night Football, so that's another reason that they can push Las Vegas time back to have that as an evening race and put it on USA. That gets it out of the Sunday Night Football portion of their broadcasting on big NBC for that one. So, which is a really shame. I've really enjoyed these last 5 or 6 weeks of doing all the races in a great time for us here in the UK.
Yeah.
And that Vegas one now being pushed later is a bit of a shame for us. And obviously I look at these times as anything after 4 o'clock Eastern is no good for me. So Nashville 7 o'clock is quite late. Charlotte obviously is always in that slot after the 500, and of course this year it was even later than that. But yeah, that Vegas 5:30 Eastern time is good for the West Coast and the Vegas area to have it later on in their afternoon, but not so much for us UK wise, and it would bring it into the real evening there for what's that? If it's half restart, 3-hour race, you're looking at a 8:30, 9 o'clock Eastern time finish for that one in that last Vegas race in the round of 8. So, but yeah, big changes happening. Of course, we've got 2 new networks coming on board in the middle of the year. Nice to see their time slots fairly good. That Atlanta race going back to a night race in the summer we already knew about, so that's not to be surprised at that one. But all in all, pretty good. The big positive I feel personally from all of this is that the Chicago street race is a 2 o'clock race and not a 5 o'clock race, as we've seen the last couple of years. It's just been affected by that late afternoon weather. So they've learned finally. It took them 2 years, but they've learned from that, and they've got that race going off post lunch in Chicago. So you can have your pizza on a Sunday lunchtime and then watch the race.
Just want to bring up quickly as well, if we take a look at the Fox schedule as well, up until March the 2nd, they're all on Big Fox. But then as soon as the IndyCar season kicks off, they're all for NASCAR on FS1 as well. So is that a good sign in terms of Fox prioritizing IndyCar for their coverage next season as opposed to their NASCAR coverage as well by dedicating, because we already knew that the big law for IndyCar to go to Fox is the fact that everything would be on the main television channel?
I think there's 4 clashes off the top of my head from memory on the same day where we've got an IndyCar race with a Fox NASCAR race. And we talked about this, I think, on the show. If we haven't, we certainly talked about it off air, where we could have one leading into the next. You could have your IndyCar race at lunchtime and then have your NASCAR race mid to late afternoon. It seems like they're not going to go that way, which is to some degree a bit of a shame, really, because it promote the other. But having them separated would avoid any delays and clashes in that respect, I guess, which is a positive for that, because we don't want to have one thing delayed because the other one hasn't finished for whatever reason early on in the year, which is just will cause a bit of a mess. So, but then you're going to have stuff running over the top of each other, perhaps, if that does happen, where you'll have races finishing where others are starting and such like. So it would have been nice to see more races on Fox there during the IndyCar Fox portion with NASCAR on Fox, but looks like they've gone the other way.
I'm going to be one very busy person at the start of next year. Adam's with us and says, I don't mind fall Talladega Cup start time and Chicago street race as well. By the way, Josh, looks great. Thank you. I don't feel great. I'd mainly just put this on because I didn't want to be had to go out for wearing a hoodie for the 3rd week running. The same hoodie as well. But yeah, I've got a bit of a cold. But I'm actually quite happy about the Talladega starting times because I won't be able to do both of them if you take a look at it, because on April 27th, I'm at Donington. So that start time means I can just get back to start covering it. And the same goes for later on in the year. Where are we? For October the 9th at 2 p.m. So yeah, that'll just be after the American Grand Prix. So it's all slightly working out there as well. Meanwhile, in Xfinity Series, all 33 races are going to be shown on the CW. Interesting enough, a good amount of the races towards the end of the season will take place in prime time on network television. Then, when you look at the Truck Series, the majority of the races will be shown on FS1. Homestead, Michigan, and the debut of Lime Rock Park will be shown on Fox as well. Personally, every time I hear the CW, I just think of Gilmore Girls, but that's just me. Matt, do you think this is all good news for trucks and especially Xfinity as well?
Yeah, especially Xfinity. That's going to be big next year. Everybody in the States has got the CW. It is a free channel for everybody. You can watch it. You don't have to complain about trying to find a NASCAR race. Just put the CW on, mostly on a Saturday afternoon and evening, and you'll find the Xfinity Series. And there's some good times there rolling around. The prime time stuff at the end of the season, is great. If you're in that part of the world, again, not great for us on this side of the big lake over here in the UK. But 7:30, 4 o'clock, it's 7:30, 4 o'clock there. When the race is going to be on at a certain time. This is when it is. You know what channel it's going to be on all year. I don't know how your DVR boxes work in the States, but you can put your series link on and you know exactly when it's going to be. So I think the Xfinity Series is going to be booming next year for television. We still need to find out who's going to be in the booth for it. Hopefully we'll get that between now and Christmas. And then their season can go. But it's the numbers for Phoenix last weekend for the season finale were massive compared to what that race has been on NBC over the last couple of years, or SN or whatever it was on in the NBC portfolio. So that was a big tick. Good to see. We talked about when the calendar came out. Good to see Rockingham back on there, and it's at a good time. And if you switch over to the truck schedule, Lime Rock being on Fox is going to be excellent. That's on the Saturday of that weekend as well. So Saturday lunchtime, big race on a new track. It's going to hopefully bring people in that don't know Lime Rock. It's not really used so much apart from for sort of IMSA for the last couple of years, but that's now fallen off that schedule. And again, plenty of sort of late night races. Darlington at 12 noon for that first round of the playoffs is going to be a warm one for right at the middle of the day. But again, pretty positive looking lineup. We talked about this when the calendars came out. It's looking good. Now we've got the times in there as well. I know we've only just finished the season at the weekend, but already quite excited to get it back underway on Valentine's weekend in February, and we'll all fall back in love with NASCAR again, because there is plenty of people that are a bit disenchanted after the weekend.
Myself among them as well. Now, before we go into our Formula yes, definitely. Now, before we go into the Formula One segment fully, I've just received a very interesting text message from a couple of paddock sources, as we've all got our touchstones. Ollie Oakes, who is not Hollyoaks, Ollie Oakes, who's the team principal of Alpine. Now, there's big rumours going on around because we already know, as we've said on the show before, Alpine have decided to take Mercedes engine and gearbox from 2026. However, there's been big news going around whether or not Alpine, being a Renault brand, will actually still be remaining in the sport. Now, they've signed on in the charters, so everyone's down on the Concord Agreement as well. But we're hearing tonight that there is a possibility of the team getting a name rebrand, and that name, High Tech, which is where Ollie Oakes was team principal in the support series. So it looks like finally High Tech will be coming in a bit in the situation of how when Alfa Romeo came back and they had Sauber. So it was very much sponsor name only. High Tech will come in as name only, and it would be still the Alpine team out of Enstone, but High Tech would come in and have the naming honours of the team. So it looks like High Tech could be coming in. Many people are already going to be saying, probably in the comments, does that mean what about Andretti, blah, blah, blah? That's one thing very early. That's been rumbling. We've got so much that's happened in Formula One in the past 24 hours. It's insane to go into it. But Matt, just quickly on that, if it does become High Tech, they've been trying to get into Formula One for the past 15 years, longer than Andretti. If any team in the juniors deserves it, I think it is High Tech.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years ago, you would have said Carlin were the thing, but obviously Trevor's now sold up to Rodin, and that's all moved away. It's not surprising, is it, that this has happened? And does that mean we're going to get a former Russian Formula One driver back in, perhaps? And then Mr. Mazepin, who's obviously massively linked with High Tech before he went to Haas. They were part owners and shareholders, weren't they, the Mazepins, with Ollie Oakes in that team when he was with them in Formula 2. So that's going to be interesting. Does that mean that Alpine, Renault, that basically would write them out, wouldn't it? If they're taking Mercedes as an engine supplier, that was confirmed yesterday. That would perhaps write Alpine completely, Alpine Renault Group as a name out of the sport, because it would probably end up being High Tech Mercedes Formula One team or something along those lines. There was also a rumor I saw doing the rounds on the Elon app that Viry, where the engines are made in France for Alpine, was going to be bought by Chevrolet. That was doing the rounds today. It's been quashed straight away, and true. But Chevrolet, GM brand, Andretti, stuff that we're going to get to talk about in a minute. It's all intertwining and things going on. So just things to keep your eye on over the winter.
Yeah, even that Formula One launch event is going to be very interesting. The last year of the regulations, and we already know that over the winter break, everyone's been going, right, what are you going to do? They're going to stick a microphone everywhere. We're trying our best to see if we can get passes for the launch event that's been announced at the O2 Arena. Only 150 though, so we're trying our best. I've got Will Wood, Jenny Gow, and everybody going around trying to find out information. They're all scrambling. I still haven't replied to Craig Slater. But let's get on to, I think, the big news that came out yesterday in Formula One. The FIA have confirmed that the Formula One race director, Niels Wittich, has stepped down from his role effective immediately with 3 race weekends remaining. Now, Wittich has been working as an F1 race director since 2022, initially sharing the job with Eduardo Freitas, as both men replaced Michael Masi before Wittich took over the full-time role last year. Now, while the FIA have acknowledged that Wittich's alleged resignation in a statement. According to Motorsport magazine, Wittich was actually fired. Now, this comes a day before Liberty Media announced that the CEO, Greg Maffei, is also stepping down at the end of the year, and John Malone will become the interim CEO of Liberty Media. Now, Rui Marques was named as Wittich's replacement starting at next weekend's Las Vegas Grand Prix. He has experience working as a track marshal, scrutineer, national and international steward, deputy race director, and most recently, of course, over the last 2 seasons, he's been the race director in Formula 2 and Formula 3. The photo courtesy there of Formula 1. They were the 2 men actually as well, because Rui Marques has been serving as the deputy race director after Herbie Blash left the role mid last season, after he was brought in to stabilise the control room. Well, does it make sense for Niels Wittich to leave his race director role with the season nearly finished? And what do you make of the report about him getting fired instead of voluntarily stepping down?
Yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense with 3 races left to go. If he was going to step down, surely he would have waited until the end of the season. So that means he was fired. And this has all come about after the US Grand Prix debacle with Max and Lando. Then there was some comments at Mexico the week after about that and other things, which we'll get to in a second. Obviously, there was much going on in Brazil. A lot of it out of Niels' hands, I guess, because with the rain and the on-track incidents in the qualifying session on Sunday, which seemed to take a week to complete with all the red flags. But yeah, I mean, again, this is, I will say again, I've said this before on this show, and I'll say it again. I know we can't do it, but please can we have Charlie Whiting back? Because none of this happened. None of this rubbish was going on when Charlie had his hand on the control. God rest his soul. But it's since then it's just gone absolutely mental, hasn't it? With all the changes, as you mentioned, we had Michael Massey, then we had Freitas and Wittich together. Wittich came from DTM, of course, Freitas from the World Endurance Championship. Freitas has gone back to do WEC and left Wittich here. Now he's gone. Rui Marques stepping up from F2 and F3, so he's got plenty of experience within the paddock and how everything works and stuff. So he'll have a busy weekend, couple of weekends in Qatar and Abu Dhabi coming up. Just right, he'll need to lay down after those 2 if he's going to be doing all of that.
He's doing them all as well.
6 or 7 races across the whole weekend, plus any supports that he might end up doing. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, this is not a stepping down, but he was probably asked to step, or asked to step aside or whatever. So differing reports from where you hear them over this last 24 hours on this one.
Yeah, and it's come as a massive shock as well. Nobody expected this. The teams didn't expect it. The drivers haven't expected it as well. But there has been a lot of vocal things in the paddock as well. And if we can just shift back in time, the biggest rumour seems to have come from the fact that Niels Wittich has had a falling out with the FIA president Mohammed Ben Sulayem. Now, this seems to come after both of them were sort of directly attacked by the Grand Prix Drivers Association, who took to a fresh Instagram page and a fresh post that they put out last Thursday. We've got it up for you now on the screen to read it through. This is a GPDA statement regarding driver misconduct, and it states, as is the case with every sport, competitors must abide by the referee's decision, whether they like it or not. Indeed, whether they agree with it or not. That is how sports work. The drivers, our members, are no different and fully understand that. Our members are professional drivers racing in Formula 1, the pinnacle of international motorsport. They are the gladiators, and every racing weekend they put on a great show for the fans. With regards to swearing, there is a difference between swearing intended to insult others and more casual swearing, such as you might use to describe bad weather or indeed an inanimate object such as a Formula 1 car or a driving situation. We urge the FIA president to also consider his own tone in language when talking to our member drivers or indeed about them, whether in a public forum or otherwise. Further, Our members are adults. They do not need to be given instructions via the media about matters as trivial as the wearing of jewelry and underpants. The GPDA has on countless occasions expressed its views that the driver monetary fines are not appropriate for our sport. For the past 3 years, we have called upon the FIA president to share the details and strategy regarding how the FIA's financial fines are allocated and where the funds are spent. We have also relayed our concern about the negative image financial fines brings to the sport. We once again request that the FIA president provides financial transparency and direct open dialogue with us. All stakeholders, FIA, F1, the teams and the GPDA should jointly determine how and where the money is spent for the benefit of our sport. The GPDA wishes to collaborate in a constructive way with all the stakeholders, including the FIA president, in order to promote our great sport for the benefit of everyone who works in it, pays for it, watches it, and indeed loves it. We are playing our part. Best regards, the directors and chairman of the GPDA, on behalf of the Grand Prix drivers as well. Now, that first 2 paragraphs there, where they talk about the drivers are no different and fully understand that, and they're respecting the FIA, the referee's decision. The referee is Niels Wittich. He's the FIA race director. This comes after problems at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, where then in the drivers' meeting on Thursday, they received what we understood to be reporting that they were lectured by Niels Wittich and talked to like a bunch of naughty school children. That has not gone down very well. This comes after problems in Mexico City and at the United States Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas, where all this dates back to beginning, whether or not the drivers agreed with what happened between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. There was also a number of procedural problems that weekend that has forced the hand of the drivers. Now, fast forward to the second part of the paragraph with regards to swearing. That's the latest crusade after the Singapore Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen swore in the press conference and was given a day's community service. Comparison, Charles Leclerc swore accidentally in a press conference, immediately apologised, and was only given a €10,000 fine. And then followed down about jewellery and the underpants. That comes from Niels Wittich and Mohammed Ben Salah. You might remember the crusade against Lewis Hamilton for wearing jewellery. I was quite vocal about it on the show myself. I thought it was a pointless matter, and I was actually on the side of the FIA. But I was also on the side of Lewis Hamilton. Just sign a non-disclosure, just sign, I'm fine, medical waiver, all done. The drivers, however, have still received pressure from Niels Wittich, the race director, who is desperate to run it his way. Also, in terms of the FIA president talking about the drivers, that's come after numerous things over the past couple of years where the FIA have been putting themselves in the spotlight rather than the drivers. So, coming back on the screen, Matt, I'll bring you on this as well. Drivers revolting, FIA in turmoil. It's just standard Formula One, isn't it? But how key is it for the FIA to need to withdraw with awesome speed the fact that they are now once again the spotlight in this sport, not the drivers?
The drivers are revolting. I mean, has there ever been a Formula One related press release that has got the 2 words gladiators and underpants in? What a world we live in. I'm with you on the jewelry thing with Hamilton. We talked about it at the time. Just let him get on with it. Whatever, it's his life. Do whatever you do. The underpants thing was just stupid. And you're right. The FIA need to continue to run the sport, but not be involved in the sport of the sport, if that makes sense. John Todd, when he was the FIA president, not so many moons ago, we didn't hear from, I said this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Max Verstappen and the swearing thing. We didn't hear from John Todd. He was too busy trying to get his Nobel Peace Prize for road safety, which he didn't get. And just let them get on with it. I don't understand why MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, has to be involved in, and with the talking about the rappers and the swearing thing after around the Singapore Grand Prix. It's just, what are you doing? Just keep your mouth shut. It's not about you. This is about Formula One and the drivers and the sport. 2 key differences in the Verstappen and Leclerc thing that you mentioned, Josh. Leclerc, that was an accident. Max's wasn't an accident. He was trying to prove a point there, and it's backfired on and bit him on the bum. I truly believe that Charles just slip of the tongue in Mexico or Brazil, whenever that was, and then made an error, which is why his punishment was different to Max's. But the GPDA have come out and put the statement out last week. I think we'll get through this triple header another triple header that we've got to come over the next 3 weeks, and then perhaps over the winter and before everyone gets back together again in Bahrain for pre-season, that there'll be hopefully there will be some changes, because the on-track product this year, okay, at the start of the season it was a little bit dull, but since everybody's caught up to Red Bull, what a terrific season it's been. But off the track, all we've heard is all this rumbling around all of this stuff that really just doesn't matter. And at the end of this, it's now ended up costing Niels Wittich his job, which is a disappointment for him and a disappointment for the FIA, because now they've got to try and go out and find another permanent race director, which is very different from the stewards. Again, he just passes the things off to the stewards. Here, look at this. This is what I think you should look at, and then they make their decisions from there. So again, we had this question a couple of years ago after the Michael Massey stuff at Abu Dhabi. Who are they going to find to fill this void? Again, we have to now question this over the winter before we get to Melbourne in March for the first Grand Prix. Who are they going to have now to come in and be the new race director? That there isn't that many candidates around that have got huge experience, and I'm going to guarantee you that Eduardo Freitas doesn't want to come back.
Yeah, he was sacked after nearly killing Pierre Gasly, of course, back in Japan. Right. I know Ben likes to edit these as well into little rambles. So if anybody watches The Daily Show, this is going to be a little bit of a rundown of the failings of the FIA, shall we? This has been what's happened since 2022. So sit down, make yourself comfortable. I'm going to ramble. So February 2022, the FIA announces its new race direction system with Eduardo Freitas and Niels Wittich taking turns in their role. We'll skip forward to March. The FIA announces the Formula One driving standards guidelines, its new criteria for dealing with incidents during drivers attempting overtakes. March 2022 as well, the FIA announces it will begin to crack down on drivers using jewellery. Lewis Hamilton is investigated on a weekly basis for not complying with its regulations. Skip forward to May. The FIA is largely abandoning that crusade. Lewis Hamilton later admits he took the whole thing as a joke after turning up in the press conference with rings on every finger, 3 watches, and massive amounts of necklaces. Skip forward to July. Tensions between drivers over dual race direction systems as well begin to boil over. Sebastian Vettel is fined €25,000 for showing his frustration, leaving the drivers' meeting early. Several drivers have publicly called for race directors to stop taking turns. October 22, Max Verstappen wins his second world championship without celebrations. The FIA strictly enforces a poorly written regulation in the rules. Ben Salai would later defend the decision, including a very awkward moment during the FIA prize-giving ceremony. Shortly afterwards, the FIA would change the regulations again. The same October, the same Grand Prix, Eduardo Freitas leaves this post after poorly handling the safety car and the red flag in the Japanese Grand Prix, as well, endangering drivers' lives. In November 22 as well, Shalina Ann Rowe, the FIA, the General Secretary and former Mercedes employee, steps down after 6 months amid rumours of leaking to the teams. In December 2022, the FIA bans drivers from displaying political, religious and or personal messages without prior approval of the Federation, following a complaint from guess who? Yes, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, the drivers' protest. Moving on as well to January 2023, the FIA hires FOM Sporting Director Steve Nielsen to become the FIA Sporting Director. FOM, in January 2023, sends a letter to the FIA complaining that Ben Sulayem has interfered with its commercial rights in an unacceptable way by commenting on a rumour of a possible sale to Saudi Arabia. In the same January 2023, Ben Sulayem says that we will never have a single race director again. February 2023, the FIA confirms that they will once again have a single race director. Also in the same February 2023, Ben Sulayem decides to take a step back from day-to-day operations of Formula One, delegating more to Nicholas Tombasi, the single-seater director for the FIA. In March 2023, complaints to race control continue. In Saudi Arabia, a safety car is deployed after admitting that it stopped a car had lost it on the circuit and they couldn't find out where it was on the circuit. In Australia, they respond to a protest by Haas by acknowledging that they were in the right but reject it with the only justification that they were in a hurry and the stewards had to make a quick decision. In July 2023, the FIA is completely overwhelmed by the 1,200 track limits actions at the Austrian Grand Prix and announced a dozen of penalty several hours after the Grand Prix. Skip forward to October 2023. The FIA approves the admission of the Andretti team, creating a conflict with FOM, which does not want to admit new teams into the championship. Skip forward to November. The FIA does not meet the time frame required for the federation itself to pass the inspection of the Las Vegas street circuit. In the very first moments of the first practice session, it's discovered that the manhole covers are not properly sealed. One of them destroys Carlos Sainz's car and requires major changes as well. The stewards, however, decide to penalise him even without offering an explanation. In December 2023, the FIA announces an investigation into Toto and Susie Wolff for potential possible conflict of interest. FOM and all teams on the grid issue a statement in defence of both. In December 2023, new FIA sporting director Steve Nielsen resigns after less than a year in charge. Skip forward to this year as well. Steve Nielsen says that he feels that the FIA is not prepared to make the changes which he considered necessary to get race control operational as they should be. In March of this year, Ben Slime is investigated for an attempt to interfere in the decision by the stewards at the 2023 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in order to not give Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin a penalty. It was later withdrawn. Same in March 2024, Ben Slime is investigated for trying to prevent the FIA from certifying the Las Vegas street circuit and thus prohibit the Grand Prix from being taken place back in 2023. That's why it took so long for them to homologate the circuit. That's why all the problems had up in first practice. Then skip forward to September. It's been a couple of months, but he's still here because Ben Slime complains about drivers swearing. The FIA then take a firm stand on the matter and starts penalising the drivers for it. Skip forward to October. Following countless complaints, the driving standards guidelines document is being questioned more than ever after the stewards failed to even apply the appropriate penalties at the United States Grand Prix. At the next Grand Prix, this document is not used as a reference and a rewrite is announced ahead of 2025. Skip forward to November. The GPDA publicly protests against the penalties for swearing and calls on Mohammed bin Salem to moderate his language when speaking about them as well. And in November, Niels Wittich has become the scapegoat. He falls out with the president, steps down as well. And now we've got 3 races to go, championship on the line, and an experienced race director as well. And that's the FIA, and it's just all drama. I don't know what's worse, Donald Trump being back in the White House or Mohammed bin Salem being in charge of the FIA. It's absolute madness. If we're in for another 4 years of that, I'd rather just quit right now.
When I wasn't giggling through that, I was just shaking my head at all of the madness that's gone on since Abu Dhabi 21. It's just been chaos, hasn't it, in the FIA towers?
Matt,
a walking disaster.
Oh, I can't do it anymore. Honestly, if this year doesn't end with Mohammed bin Salem being outed by the FIA, I don't know what will. It's going to be a crazy 3 races left, and it's only the beginning because the drivers are getting more and more annoyed as well. That's from Victoria Abad, by the way, who very kindly gave us all the details as well. And I, of course, added in other facts and stats throughout that 5-minute monologue. Either way, it's time to hear the latest in the Grid EPI, and I'm going to go for a lie down. Matt, over to you.
Take a breath before we do the EPI. Hello to Matthew Owens, who's watching on delay. And back to our NASCAR schedule chat, says it was pre-announced that as part of the deal that there will be fewer races on Fox and NBC when the calendar came out. He's not, we know that Matthew is well in with what's happening in the sort of media and TV landscape. He wasn't sure why that is. We're not sure why that is. We don't know. Right, let's do the Grid Endurance Performance Index. We haven't got many more weeks of this to go. And this week, we might crown a champion. We'll get to that in a moment. The GT World Challenge Australia finale was at the weekend at everyone's favourite scenic road, Mount Panorama at Bathurst. 2 races across the weekend at the Bathurst International. Brad Schumacher and Will Brown getting the victory on Saturday. Mark Rosser and Alex Peroni getting the win on Sunday. Liam Talbot and Chaz Moster are the champions. That was wrapped up on that Sunday race. So congratulations to the race winners and to Chaz and Liam on the championship. Here is how the points stand. It is the same top 10 as we were for last week, with Lawrence Van Voort at the top of it. This weekend coming up, we are focused on Macau for the GT World Cup race, or races, because I misspoke last week. There is 2 races, a qualifying race and the main race, which is on the Sunday. Both will count for EPI points. Van Voort has to be on the podium in some shape or form in both races to win the Grid EPI. It'll be very close call in terms of the points, but he has to be on the podium in both of them. A win would in either of those 2 races would secure it. Anything outside the top 4 or 5 without a win in the other race, depending on how it swings through the weekend, would rule Vanfor out of winning the Grid EPI for 2024, and that would give Dane Cameron the prize with, I think, 5 races left after this weekend in the Grid Insurance Performance Index of 2024, the longest motorsport championship in the world per calendar year. In terms of race numbers, it's 149 this year. So we're on the cusp of crowning our champion, much like we are in the grid ranking, which we may talk about later on. Lawrence Vanfor and Dane Cameron fighting it out for the points, not on the racetrack at the same time, but for the points. Macau this weekend with those 2 GT World Cup races, and also it's the last race of the Nürburgring Langstrecke Series at the Nordschleife on Saturday in the middle of November, if that race actually happens, because of course it's the Nürburgring and it's November, so we may see snow, fog, wind, or lots of rain, but let's hope we get plenty of sunshine for that one to conclude that championship. And we'll update you on who has won the Grid EPI on the show next week, because we will have a champion, because Vanfor and Cameron's seasons will be over and no one else will be able to catch them. There is the top 50 from Vanfor all the way down to Mitsunori Takebashi in 50th position. And that may shuffle around through those races at the weekend, but we will certainly have our 2024 Grid Endurance Performance Index champion to tell you about in this slot on the show next week. Now let's bring Kobe back into the fold for the rest of this week's headlines.
Thanks, Matt. Time for some more motorsports news from around the world. Corey Haim will return to the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series full-time in 2025. He'll enter year 3 with Tricon Garage, driving the number 11 Toyota Tundra with continued sponsorship from Safelite. Haim just completed the 2024 season and finished second in the Truck Series Championship, coming up a spot short of this year's champion Ty Majeski. He ends his second full season with 6 wins, 14 top 5s, 18 top 10s, 1 pole, and an average finish of 7.2. The team's general manager, Kevin Ray, said they're very fortunate to get Haim for another year and praised them for helping elevate their entire organization. Graphic courtesy of Tricon Garage. And some news that should excite American racing fans who want to see another American get to the pinnacle of motorsports today. American driver Max Esterson will make his Formula 2 debut in Qatar for Trident Racing. Esterson just completed the 2024 Formula 3 season with Genzer Motorsport, and he finished 21st in the standings. He only finished in the points twice in F3, 6th in the Bahrain Sprint Race, and 7th in the Spa Feature Race. Now he'll complete the last 2 race weekends of the F2 season in Qatar and Abu Dhabi. Esterson said it's fantastic for him to make his F2 debut this soon, earlier than he expected. Photo courtesy of Trident Racing. Jackson Evans will return to Brett Jones Racing next year in the Repco Supercars Championship. Although it's been a tough rookie season for the driver who's currently outside the top 20 in points, Evans has spent the year adapting to this style of racing and just simply learning. In the Kiwis home race at Taupo, he got a top 10 finish in wet weather conditions, which is one of the highlights of his rookie year. Evans said again, the second year in Supercars full-time brings a new level of excitement. Despite the results so far, he believes the program is headed in the right direction. Graphic courtesy of Brad Jones Racing. DXDT Racing confirmed his IMSA Michelin Endurance Cup lineup for next year. The number 36 Corvette Z06 GT3R will compete in the GTD class. For the endurance race, we'll see Alec Udell, Charlie Eastwood, and Sally Yolu behind the wheel. Those 3 will begin working together this weekend during an IMSA offseason test. Daytona and the 4th driver for the Rolex 24 will be announced at a later date, including a driver lineup for the sprint races. Photo courtesy of DXDT Racing. And also a story that came through late this afternoon, Rackley War, they're going to be moving their truck series operations from Tennessee to North Carolina. They're going to be moving to the GMS fabrication building in Statesville, North Carolina, which is going to help them get closer to their resources and partners, which includes chassis builders and part suppliers, not just for its truck series program, but its late model program as well. They're also going to be closer to the General Motors Technical Center in Charlotte as they continue to try to build their late model in their truck series program. And as we previously reported on a past show, Kevin Harvick is going to be working with this group as well. So Rackley War is really trying to put Dawson Sutton, its new full-time driver, in the truck series in the best position possible to succeed. And now we're going to end our show with some sad news that came out, literally minutes before the NASCAR Xfinity Series championship race. NASCAR Hall of Famer Bobby Allison passed away at age 86. Allison was the 1983 NASCAR Cup Series champion and a beloved member of the Alabama gang. The 2011 NASCAR Hall of Fame inductee, recently became an 85-time winner in the Cup Series after NASCAR decided to recognize his 1971 victory at Bowman Gray Stadium, putting Allison fourth on the all-time wins list. He also won NASCAR's Crown Jewel races multiple times, 3 Daytona 500s, 3 Coca-Cola 600s, and 4 Southern 500s. One of Allison's most notable moments was helping his brother Donnie Allison in the famous fight with Kel Yarborough that put NASCAR on the map in the 1979 Daytona 500. In his final season of racing, Allison won the 1988 Daytona 500 in a special family moment, holding off son Davey Allison to win the Great American Race. But unfortunately, Allison suffered a career-ending crash later that same season at Pocono Raceway. And here's a fact that doesn't get enough attention. Allison also made 6 IndyCar starts in the mid-1970s, all with Team Penske, including 2 Indianapolis 500s, 2 races at Ontario, then a race apiece at Pocono in Michigan. And on behalf of everyone here at Grid Network, we extend our deepest condolences to the Allison family during this difficult time, and we hope the memory of Bobby Allison will be a blessing. Graphic courtesy of NASCAR. And now I'm going to turn over to you, Matt, for Pick a Winner.
Thank you, Kobe. We're getting towards the end of the season, which means we're getting towards the end of Pick a Winner, but there's still 4 points up for grabs this weekend. 2 coming from the Supercars Championship and 2 from MotoGP. There is the point standings. Red numbers, you're out. You can't win it. We were down to 3. Matt B, Kobe, and Josh T.
How the hell's he done it?
Who knows? But those are the 3 guys that are fighting it out for this championship, although with I think it's 8 points now left on the table. I think Matt can wrap it up this weekend if he gets 1 point or Kobe doesn't score and start catching him up. We've got 2 points, 2 races to pick from on the show here now, and we'll do the others over the weekend on the show. And of course, you can get your picks in on all of the social medias, and the Grid Network, let me throw this out there now before we get to it later on, is now on Blue Sky. So if you are one of the people that have made the jump across to Blue Sky this week, and I know a lot of people have, including myself, then get on the Grid Network on Blue Sky and give us a follow on and a share on there. Points to pick for this weekend then. It is the MotoGP finale at it's not at Valencia. It's at Barcelona, as we reported on the show last couple of weeks. For the season finale, Jorge Martin versus Pecco Bagnaia. The championship could be won in the sprint race, and I think it will, because I'm picking Jorge Martin to win the sprint race on Saturday and take the title. Kobe, who are you going with?
First and foremost, I want to start off by congratulating Matthew Bro for winning the Pick a Winner championship, because Josh T and myself, we're not going to get there no matter what happens. It would have to be an epic collapse for Matthew not to get there. So definitely want to send my early congratulations to Matthew. He's basically the Pick a Winner champion-elect right now. But in all seriousness, getting back to the sprint race at Barcelona, I agree with you. I think the championship's going to be wrapped up at the end of the sprint race. Jorge Martin's basically been the king of the sprint races this season, and I expect that to continue in the season finale. I think he's going to win that race and end up clinching the championship. Who you got, Josh?
Nope. I knew you'd say that.
No. There's one thing I know about Pecco Bagnaia. If it's one thing I know about Jorge Martin, he may be absolutely fantastic for 90% of the time, but every single time it comes to a championship, he bottles it. Every time. And this is a circuit where you are riding on a knife edge, and they've brought so many different tyres here. They've literally scrambled to get tyres. They've got 1 asymmetric soft front hard. They've got 3 rear hard mediums asymmetric. They've literally just scrambled the tyres that were left over in May, and then the tyres that they were going to use for testing in Valencia, which are sort of prototype combined. So they've just sort of scrammed them all together. But this championship's got 1 more swing left in it. I'm going to say Bagnaia's going to win the sprint race, and then I'm going to say it's too early to tell who's going to win the Grand Prix. We've got no data on this circuit this time of year. It's fun. And of course, we are racing in solidarity with Valencia. It's the Solidarity Grand Prix. I have understanding as well that all of the ticket sales are going towards Valencia as well. And all of the weekends. However, I must just point out that MotoGP's donation site link, you can only do it if you're Spanish. So please use Aspar's. Aspar is the Valencian Moto team across Moto 2 and Moto 3. They are in Valencia, and they absolutely are the ones to go for. They've already raised more. So Aspar is the way to go if you're not in Spain. But it's Pecco Bagnaia for the sprint race.
one more twist then potentially. It would be a damp squib if it ends up on the Saturday in the sprint race, but we'll see over the weekend. The other race we're going to pick for tonight is the first of the 2 races for the final time, if the way the schedule's set out for next year happens. The final time for 2 races at the Adelaide 500 for supercars. It's Will Brown versus Brock Feeney here for the championship, the 2 Red Bull Ampol 888 racing cars. I don't think either of them are going to win on Saturday, though, and I'm going to go with the man that suddenly keeps winning, and that's Brody Kostecki. Kobe, who are you going with?
I promise I'm not copying him, Matt, but that's also my pick as well. Brody Kostecki's just been on fire lately. It's like the Brody we saw last year is completely back now, and given the chemistry that him and Erebus have right now, given all the things that happen, behind the scenes, it's kind of a shame. The band is getting broken up at the end of the year because if they were to stay together and start off 2025, the way they're running now, I think last year's Brody could return and be a threat for the championship. And with the way Dick Johnson Racing is looking right now, it seems like there are a bit ways of getting back to the winning ways when they were Dick Johnson Racing with the alliance with Team Penske and Scott McLaughlin. They have a long way to go before they get back to that. But maybe Brody can knock some life into that team like he's done with Erebus here down the stretch. Before I hand over to Josh, Adam Limerick also gives his picks for the sprint race. You think Jorge Martin, and then for race 1, Adelaide, you think Brock Feeney. Yeah, Brock Feeney victory would be really interesting given the championship battle he's having with Will Brown right now. All right, Josh, give this a shot. Who you think?
I was going to say Will Brown as well, just because I've been sort of out of the loop at the moment. I completely forgot it was Adelaide this weekend as well, actually, because it's been recovery time for me. So I'll stick with Will Brown. I've been going with him most of the time this season. I got a couple of points on him, but here, there, everywhere. It's sort of a wild guess for me, isn't it?
Yeah, you can get your picks in on the social medias over the weekend for both the MotoGP races and both of the supercar races. Use the hashtag pick a winner. I was just looking at the leaderboard there, Kobe and Josh, while you were doing your picks. It's pretty tight there from second down to Adam, really, in 7th. What's that? 7 points between 5 or 6 of us. So we could still see a podium shuffle in the pick a winner standings with the remaining races to go. Get your hashtag pick a winner picks in then for MotoGP races and supercar races over the weekend on social media, and we'll talk more about it over the shows on the weekend. Right then, Josh, hots and nots for us to go through from a slightly quieter week, I guess. We're really only the NASCAR weekend at Phoenix this weekend, but as we talked about earlier, there's been plenty of stuff bubbling around in the news cycle. I don't think I've got any hots. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And I was sparked by you mentioning Aspar. David Alonso, the picture of David Alonso in the street, covered in mud, helping out the rescue effort in the week. He is from Valencia. The team is from Valencia. Oh, he's living in Valencia. He's Colombian, of course, but it's basically his hometown. And that whole community down there, we keep in our thoughts and our prayers. And the cleanup operation is underway, and it's great to see the team quite literally mucking in to help with the rescue effort. So I think that's my only hot from this week.
I'm with you on that. And he said on the grid in Malaysia that I may become a Colombian, but for this day today, the rest of the day, I'm Valencian. I'm from Valencia. I live in Valencia. I am Valencian. So absolutely wonderful to see that as well. Hot safety car crashing. That's my heart, because it happened. JT's actually done the math on this, by the way. It happened on lap 69 of the race at 4:20 p.m. Just mad. It's just mad. And you can't say, oh, that's dirty-minded of you all, because literally, I checked on Twitter during the Brazilian Grand Prix when it went back to being 69 laps. Everybody, A, joking about 69 laps saying nice, and then B, joking about everyone 69 laps and it's Brazilian. So it was just jokes galore. Anyway. Yes, moving on. But so it was quite funny, really, that happened. I don't like how I've got my stat sheets here. So these are the information that I'm sure you lot had in the commentary box. So these are the 4 that came in. Joey Logano ranked 2nd, Will Byron ranking 4th, Tyler Reddick ranking 3, Ryan Blaney ranking as number 1, coming in because winners takes all. Now, could you explain to me how the regular season champion, Tyler Reddick, ended the day 4th and last and out of it, Ryan Blaney, who had a great run at the end of it and then just ended up at the back, and how Joey Logano, who literally won one race, then won the round of 16, then won the round of 8, and then won the last race, he's suddenly the champion. That's my big knock. I'm sorry, but Joey Logano's averaging finish position is 17.4. The guy who won most races this year hasn't won it. And if I'm not mistaken, who got the victory in the championship with all the points combined? Was it Bell?
I'm
can't
not
remember
sure
now.
about that. If it had gone to a regular season champion, I'm not sure.
But just mad. And I didn't feel like it. I also don't like how I felt that there was corruption there. I don't think Blaney, he was right there and then he backed off. Yeah, there was traffic, but I still feel like there was a signal from up above.
No, I disagree.
Really? You thought he would have gone for it? Or Logano just had better pace?
Well, I don't think he would have gone for it. If he may have gone for it more if it wasn't a teammate. He took too long to get past Kyle Larson in that last run. That's what caused it. If there had been 5 more laps at the end, I think he would have got Logano. And that 2 races in a row that he's come through at the end, just passing people for fun. He did it at Martinsville, of course, to win the race. And we're willing him on to just have a go, just get there and just try with a couple laps to go. And as I sent a message to Matthew Owens on the Monday, it's very rare, and this is strange that it should be very rare, that I actually have dreams about racing. But that Sunday night, I had a dream about the end of that race, and there was a caution with 3 laps to go, and then I woke up, which is a real shame.
I'm so glad that we didn't have that. I'm so glad that we didn't have that.
Yes, indeed. The pace car shunting at the end of the pit lane, peeked behind the curtain at the end of stage 1 on USRN. We do our on the stain racing portion, and I was just ended up doing that, and I was here with my phone reading off, and suddenly Jackson and Matthew both went, "Whoa!" I was like, "What's happening?" Oh, I looked at the screen, and then we saw the sand barrels everywhere. So that was a nice comical moment to finish the season. Yes, not that the guy with a 17 average finish ended up winning the championship, but the guy with the best average finish all season was only 11 points something with Chase Elliott. So it wasn't like someone that didn't win the championship had an average finish of 3.7 or something, So that's a shame. A funny knot was supercars this week. Of course, they're changing their system next year to have a playoff format of sorts, and all this talk of average finish. Posted a graphic out yesterday with all of the champions' average finish back from 2010 to this year. Just to roll the grenade in there. Thank you to the Supercars media team. Scott McLaughlin's 2.3 will not be beaten from 2018 or 19, whenever it was. 2.3 average over the whole year. Incredible.
He's just unstoppable. He's going to be one to watch next year in IndyCar, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely right. IndyCar's going to be on fire with Scotty Mack next year. Another hot, quickly before I do Adams, another hot, and he's got it in there, so I'm going to say it because Adam's got it. Justin Allgaier finally winning the Xfinity Championship after multiple years of coming up short. What is it? 7 out of 9 championship 4s he's ended up being in and not won. So that was cool to finally see. And to back off of Ben's Eric Almirola chat on the show last week, congratulations to that team for winning the Owners' Championship. And also, Adam says hot this weekend. It's Macau Supercars and MotoGP. So a busy weekend to come.
Right. What is this Blue Skies?
It's old Twitter, basically. That's exactly. It looks just like old Twitter from about 2009.
Does it have a tweet deck?
Don't know.
That's all I care about.
I don't use TweetDeck, so
that's the worst thing Elon ever did to me was take TweetDeck away. Honestly, because TweetDeck, we used it all the time in the commentary box. Couldn't find a driver tracker? Stick TweetDeck on, get your voices heard. All I can hear now is Data singing "Blue Skies." The scone. Scone.
Scone. It's a scone.
Yes, it's a scone. But I was like, from Star Trek TNG, that song. That he sang with Blue Skies. I think it's, I don't know, it's Irving Berlin, isn't it? I had to remember that.
If you say so.
Blue skies shining on me. Do you remember it?
No.
You don't know it? Oh, it's fantastic.
Quite literally quote people that know me, it hasn't got racing cars in, I wasn't interested.
Never saw the sun shining so bright. Never
didn't.
saw things looking so right. Noticing
Before we
the
break out
days
into
hurrying
before we
by.
break out into musical hour on Good Tonight, I think we should wrap up the show.
When you're in love, how they fly, blue skies. Seriously, Google it after this. It's fantastic. Yes, wrapping up. Well, we had to fill. We were on for an hour. We've got 54. I could do a marionette. It's fine. So taking a look at our upcoming schedule as well. Saturday, Grid Live pre-race is at noon Eastern. Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up. That's going to be at noon Eastern as well. That's to recap the MotoGP and the Supercars final races at Barcelona and Adelaide as well. I'll be making sure to make an appearance to crown a champion as well. And that's it, of course, because we've got no NASCAR anymore. There's no Grid Encore. That's concluded for now. We'll hopefully have that when we have the F2 races back, if I can drag the boys in for a chat to round out that championship as well. Please do continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We can thank you very much for helping us reach the 1,000 subscribers milestone. We're now well on the way to 2,000 subscribers. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications when we go on the air. And you can follow all of our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Mark, Michelle, Robin, David, and Matthew who invest each month in the Grid Network. And we encourage you to join these fine folks to help us keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can start sending our team to the track to cover more races and continue expanding as well. The link to all of that is in the video description. If you want to do a one-time donation as well, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link and get your name on the board and invest as much as you want. And you can consider buying a specific on-air personality of cup of coffee, and they will thank you on the air as well. For Kobe Lambeth and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, I'm Joshua Birch. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.